All right, are people in? Let's see. Yes, all right. Welcome everyone to today's, this month's SEEDS chapter event. And since March is Women's History Month, we've decided to host an all-women panel to discuss diverse careers in ecology and related fields. So just a few tips to get this conversation going. Again, it's a panel discussion to discuss different thoughts on being women in science and how can professional societies such as ESA and programs like SEEDS better serve women and others that are underrepresented in this field. If you have questions, just you can click on reactions and then the raise your hand button. Please keep your mic muted until we call upon you. And you're welcome to post any comments or questions in the chat box at any time. I might just get one of your questions and incorporate that into the discussion. And if not, we'll have time. The idea is to have time towards the end to answer any questions you might have. And then of course that this event will be recorded. I also want to welcome, of course, today's panel. We have Dr. Angelica Patterson, Master Science Educator at Black Rock Forest. And I placed the academic background just to show that the diversity around that as well, not just the professional titles, but also that academic background. We have Nikita Kowal, an environmental engineer. We have Micalah Spenrath, Senior Project Manager at a private firm. And we have Samantha Peña, a park ranger. So I'm gonna allow each of them to introduce themselves a little bit. So Angie, would you like to go first?
Absolutely. Happy to be here, first of all, and hopefully you'll come out with some gems of wisdom from all of us. Yes, so my name is Angie Patterson. I'm the Master Science Educator at Black Rock Forest, located in Cornwall, New York, in the Hudson Valley region, about an hour and a half north of New York City. I started this job in February 2020. And my primary focus for the job is to be a liaison to about 17 different member institutions that span from K through 12 education institutions to universities and colleges, as well as cultural institutions such as the American Museum of Natural History. So I basically speak with educators. I kind of uphold the education pillar of Black Rock Forest mission of advancing our understanding of the natural world. And I work with educators to come up with some innovative curriculum for visiting school groups and students to engage in the forest in impactful and memorable ways. Thank you.
Thanks, Angie. Nikita, do you want to go next?
Sure. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Nikita Kowal, and I graduated from Arizona State in 2019 with a bachelor's in chemical engineering and a minor in sustainability. And then I moved up to Eugene, Oregon right after graduation and started working as an environmental engineer at International Paper. I work at a pulp and paper mill, so we make liner board paper for boxes. So the paper that you see on the outside of your Amazon boxes, that's what we make here. And my main job is air quality compliance. So pretty much I do all the reporting and the day-to-day operations of making sure our pollution control devices are working properly and we're staying within our regulatory limits. And also, I'm just want to say I'm really happy that SEEDS invited me to come do this career panel. I think it's really cool that we're doing a women's specific career panel. So thank you guys.
You are very welcome. Kayla.
Hi, everybody. I am Micalah. So I'm a project manager Basically what that means is companies or governments typically have like pots of money, and then they have goals that they want to meet. They're not sure how to do it. So they call in a project manager to implement processes, design processes to get that vision and turn it into reality. That's a very romantic way to say it. It's actually a lot of paperwork. And I've managed environmental projects as well as hazard mitigation projects. So hazard mitigation is basically protecting communities from flooding, and the environmental projects have basically been to implement statewide water quality monitoring projects. So that's a little bit about my job. And then I participated in SEEDS when I was an undergraduate, way back when. And so I actually founded, I think it was the third chapter of SEEDS in Texas at the time. It hadn't gained very much traction, but we were able to make a go of it at the University of Texas at Arlington. And then I'm also a current graduate student at Stanford University, getting my master's in environmental engineering. Soon to be done. Very happy that the finish line is in sight. Happy to be here with you all.
Thanks, Micalah. And Sam, I know you have a couple of slides, so I can go ahead and share those now, and you can go through those if that sounds fair.
Yeah, no, that works. Wow, I'm a part of a fantastic panel. You guys are amazing. So yeah, my name is Samantha Peña, and I am from El Paso, Texas, and I graduated from the University of Texas at El Paso with a bachelor's in environmental biology. So just a little bit about me and my current position that I'm going to be working this season is I'm going to be a science communication assistant at Zion National Park. Just a little bit about myself, kind of how I got here. Just there's a picture of UTEP right there. Are we jumping into everything, Sandra? Like just all the slides I have, do you want me to go into them?
Oh, well, you can just go as far as you tell me. I can stop here and we can jump into the discussion and leave the for the end.
Yeah, these I was going to kind of use these to guide the discussion, the questions and all of that.
Okay, let me know when you would like me to bring them back.
Yeah, so just there's El Paso, so you can tell it's a pretty urban place, and I didn't always know I wanted to be a park ranger, and we'll get into that a little bit as we do this discussion. But I'm super excited to be here with you guys today, and hopefully learn a lot from this panel from you guys as well.
Great, excellent. So are there any questions? No, I don't see any questions yet. So I'll as a moderator de facto, I will start the discussion if there are no questions coming in from participants. So you all come from varying educational backgrounds and pursued different career paths. And we did that intentionally, right? Because we do not want to talk and think of ecology. We want to think about ecology more broadly, and we need to do that more. And so that when we start inviting environmental scientists, communicators, project managers, chemical engineers, that means there's room for you in ecology as well as other careers out there. So nonetheless, in a certain way, you're all connected to science. We all are. So can you talk more about the decision to pursue the academic field that you did?
Do you want us to go in order or just like shout out?
You can shout out. I don't have, no, it doesn't have to be like that order has to be.
Okay, no problem. So my primary motivation was definitely not money because there's not a lot of it in environmental work. It was mostly just, you want to leave the world a little bit better than you found it. And one of the best ways to do that is to protect the environment. And then, of course, in the effort of protecting public health along the way. So that's pretty much what drew me to environmental science and also ecology and really a lot of different STEM fields, really just to protect the planet.
I can go next. I mean, I have a whole journey, kind of how I got into this field. The work that I do, how I ended up here, is very non-traditional, and I've had some, sidetracking along the way. But I was always interested in the natural world, I would say. I grew up in the Poconos in Pennsylvania, so I was kind of immersed in nature already. My family wasn't necessarily a hiking type of family. I didn't really discover hiking or the outdoors as we have come to kind of work in it. Not until really late, I would say college. Yeah, probably undergrad. Yeah, my family was more of like a theme park kind of vacationer. So my first, I love science, but I also loved music. I went to Cornell University for undergrad, and I settled on becoming a veterinarian. And so I went there specifically because they had a great vet school. But it just ended up not being the way I went. I ended up taking a conservation biology course that kind of changed my worldview. And I was able to think about, ooh, maybe I could work with wildlife, not necessarily be in a clinic taking care of animals. And then really just loved the idea of being able to explore hot topics in climate science, geology, just broader ecological topics, and kind of become a detective and go through that scientific method of doing research to kind of get the answers that you're looking for or searching for. So yeah, I started down that path, switched my major from animal science to natural resources, and then was able to do a whole bunch of different types of internships and experiences to target into plant science, and more specifically plant ecophysiology. How I got into act more teaching and education, we could touch upon that later, but I was able to combine skills throughout my journey.
Angelica, I feel like we are the same person. I had a very similar journey as you. No journey is the same though, but despite being a park ranger, I didn't come from an outdoorsy background at all. My family loved the theme parks. We loved the movie theaters. I didn't really go outside too much, to be honest. And it was in high school that I actually had a fantastic environmental science teacher that kind of just helped guide me into going into college as an environmental biology major. And that's kind of where I hit more into the research side of things. I did have a very similar background with Angelica with wanting to be a veterinarian. I did have that desire, and most of my college degree was targeted towards that. And I ended up having a REU experience. For those who don't know, it's a research experience for undergraduates. And it was absolutely fantastic. And I kind of just started going towards that direction and being excited with communication and education and connecting people with not only the science, but what we could do about it or to learn more about it. And one day I was just on the internet looking up different jobs I could do with that degree, and I saw park ranger and I thought it sounded fun, and I ended up falling in love with it. And that's kind of how I'm at here. And I'll talk a little bit more about my job if anyone is interested.
Okay. Yeah, I think all of us seem to have a crazy path of how we got here. So I think so. I actually came from a family where my mom hiked a lot, and she brought me out even in middle school. I remember I just wanted to play basketball, and she said, "No, let's go for a hike on the weekends. Get off the basketball court and just come out and enjoy nature." And so she took me on a lot of trips, and in middle school I didn't appreciate it, but once I got into high school, I really started like enjoying being outdoors. And even though the air isn't completely fresh in the middle of Phoenix, I still got the joys of being outside in nature and getting exercise and appreciating all the wildlife around me. And so in high school, I ended up joining a sustainability program that my school was holding. So I took a bunch of classes in that and knew I wanted to do something environmental related. But my passion at the time lied in chemistry. So I was like, okay, how can I combine like chemistry and environmental science? And I joined a research lab. Luckily in high school, I ran into a professor, just a really weird incident where I ran into her and she's like, do you want to come clean glassware in the lab for me in the summers? And so I went there, and it was a water quality lab, biogeochemistry, and started to kind of get a feel for research. And I thought, this is actually really cool. But the lab manager at the time told me, you should try chemical engineering. I think you might really like it, because I also liked math. So somehow I ended up when I joined college, I decided to go the chemical engineering route, knowing that I wanted to do environmental related things, but I had no idea as a freshman in college, like what that really meant. And after my freshman year, the summer after my freshman year is when I actually got introduced to seeds, and joined a biogeochemistry lab through the fellowship that Seeds had. And I got to do a lot of really fun field work there. I was doing soil science. So we go out in the middle of the summer to the middle of the desert and take soil cores and stuff. But the person that was my I know one of the further later questions is about who inspired you. And my professor, Dr. Becky Ball, she inspired me because she was so passionate about it, and she made everything really fun. And it made me say, okay, science is definitely what I want to do, and I want to do something environmental related. Anyways, long story short, finished with that fellowship and went back to I switched into some environmental engineering research just to kind of bring in more of the engineering side. And I did that for two years in college. And just over time, I realized that research isn't exactly what I was passionate about. So I started to look at all my different career options. And I kind of knew I wanted to be an environmental engineer, but not be in academia. And so that's kind of how I joined this company doing environmental compliance work. And yeah, that's where I'm at now. And I don't know what the next 20 years is going to look like. Who knows?
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. For what it's worth, I'm just a moderator, but I have a background in environmental science. So I'm technically an environmental scientist. And then I decided I want to learn how people learn science. And that's what led me to pursue a graduate degree in education. So, and you can see where I'm at now as a professional programs coordinator at the Ecological Society of America. So anything can happen. So I was going to use that as a segue, but Annabelle, go ahead, please ask.
I was wondering, with all your different jobs and stuff, either with the current job that you have or just other jobs that you have applied for in the past, I was wondering if there was anything when you were applying for jobs where you were really intimidated by it, and how did that turn out? If you got that job, were your fears, were you relieved? How did it end up going?
So I've applied to a lot of jobs. I'm not in the education space. I've worked in state government and then of course private industry. So I've applied to a lot of jobs. So I haven't been intimidated by anything, but that just might be my personality. But I would say, look at jobs that you find interesting. They usually have the duties and tasks associated with that job listed, and just get experience in those things if you don't have it. So a great example, there's been a recent push in the last few years to really bump up your sustainability initiatives in your company or government. And one of the things that you can do to be marketable in that space is to be LEED certified or have BREEAM certifications. And if you don't know what those are, that's totally fine. You'll probably see them in job listings. And so I would just Google some jobs that you think you would like: environmental specialist, ecologist, wetland delineator. That is a job. And you actually have to have a good knowledge of ecology to do it. So that's a really good path to look at. You can also be a project manager and work on environmental projects. There are a lot of different things out there. And so just compare the types of job duties and skills that they're looking for. And just through virtue of your academic career, or even like going online and doing like Coursera or something, just get some familiarity with those things, and you'll be much more competitive when you're applying.
I also believe that the thing that made me less intimidated, I applied for a lot of jobs coming out of college, and I think throughout, like especially junior and senior year, I kind of worked really hard to make connections with companies that I was interested in, and get to know some of the people there. So when I went to the interview to these different companies, I at least knew I had either someone in my corner, or I had an idea of how the company worked. Or even like I job shadowed one of the engineers one time for a consulting firm, just to get an idea of like what their office was like. And I think it really helps when you go into the interviews when you have a little bit of that background. And I know they say a lot like, oh, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I think that has a lot of backing to it. So anywhere you are, and some of the people I've met was just like on airplanes. So, you know, like anytime you can, like it just crazy things happen. So I would say just get to know people, put yourself out there. And when the interview comes, know that you have the skills. Like if they gave you an interview, then you have the skills to have the job. They're really just trying to see like if you mesh with the group that you're going to be working with.
And also I would go off that. Yeah, that's fantastic advice. Just really connecting with everyone that you can. Even if you haven't maybe heard back for something that you had applied for, I would say go ahead and email anyway. In my line of work, I found that a lot of the times I get that internship, or I get that job, or I even get that connection just from reaching out to that person and expressing to them why I'm interested, and in learning more about the position, or learning how I can be in that role. I feel like that just also shows, you know, how and
Oh, Sam, I think we lost your connection a little bit, but
that was kind of the ending thought. Just like feel free to reach out to people and connect.
Yeah, my internet might be shoddy too. I'm in the middle of the forest right now. So yeah, no, I think your question is a great one, and it has multiple layers to it, right? Because there's that process of, am I ready for this job? Am I ready to apply for it? And then once you're in the job, you still might have anxieties on if you can complete, you know, whatever comes your way. I know, you know, with any new job that I apply for, I just, like everyone said, kind of see what their job responsibilities are, you know, in that job ad, and see what prior experiences I have that can at least match that. And, you know, we always term that like transferable skills. So how can you, you know, even if you babysat, right, you can turn that into, you know, yes, I oversee, or like I can manage these kids. Like, you know, you have some kind of responsibility over those that are younger than you, and you can direct people, right? So you just have to be very creative when you go to these, you know, explore these jobs. And remember, you know, if you're coming straight out of undergrad, there's going to be a lot of jobs open out there that are entry level. They're not going to expect you to know everything. Though that's the experience where you're going in and they're going to train you, so that when you do maybe, you know, go to another job after that, after a couple of years or so, you're just more experienced and you fine tune those skills. And I'm still building my skills, and I've been in the workforce for a pretty long time, like over a decade. So, and even within the job, you know, I'm like, okay, I've never taught this before. Let's see what happens. There's going to be an element of the unknown, and there's going to be an element of they say I'm the Master Science Educator. Let me pretend to be the Master Science Educator for something I don't know, you know, and then it ends up working out. You know, you do your research, you train yourself, and you know, most of the times it works out. So, yeah.
This is all like great advice to get less intimidated. Just you gotta learn how to market yourself and stand out. That means taking more training and networking and keeping the doors open, even if, you know, it seems like they were closed. And yeah, it's a lifelong thing. You're always gonna be figuring things to learn and advance always. So thank you. And yeah, my segue question was, well, transitioning from school to work, how did you end up in your current line of work? And did you ever imagine you were going to be in the position you're in currently?
I'll just take the floor on this one. Start it off. The answer is no. No, you know, maybe there are some people that they know what they want to do their whole life and they're able to follow through with that. But I would say mine was a big roller coaster. And the best advice I could give to you guys is don't feel like you have to lock yourself into anything, and don't feel that even if you do get this degree and maybe you change your mind on it, don't feel like you're locked into anything. You can always change your mind on what you want to do. If one moment you're passionate about, you know, being a park ranger, and then next moment you want to work, I'm trying to think of a good example, but you can just know that you can switch, and it's very fluid, and you don't have to stay with something, especially if you're not happy in it. So for the longest time, you know, mine and Angelica's stories were very similar. I wanted to be a veterinarian, and I had studied all throughout college for that. And then I did fall in love with research, and I was diving straight into that. I was getting ready to apply for my master's, and to know also that sometimes life happens and that's okay too. So I'll get just a little in depth here. I did die with cancer. So I stepped back from that, and I took a year just to be with my mom and family, and, you know, kind of focus a little bit on some other things that I was really passionate about. Can you guys hear me? My internet connection said that it went out.
It's a little bit spotty at
Can you
times.
hear me? We're good? Well, that makes me sad. Okay. Well, hopefully it all gets through to you. And then after I spent time with my mom for a while, that's when I was trying to get recentered on what I wanted to do. And that's when I came into this park ranger position. And last year I did work as an interpretive ranger for Shenandoah National Park. I did throw a few slides up there just because, are they still there, Sandra? Can you see them? Yeah, so I did work as an interpretive ranger, just meaning that I interpreted education for the park. This is a little bit more about me. There's me in the seeds chapter and some of the research I did, but here's some pictures from Shenandoah. I was an interpretive ranger, so a lot of my programs focused on education. There was a night sky festival weekend, and I did a rocket ship program. It was super fun. And there's me and another ranger checking out the Milky Way. And I loved connecting people, and people maybe who have never even been outside, and teaching them about the outdoors. The position that I have now is a science communication assistant at Zion National Park. It's kind of switched roles a little bit more, and I will be doing water quality research in the park, as well as night sky monitoring, and then translating that information to the State Health Department of Utah, as well as the visitors of the park. So just know that it's very fluid, and you can always go back to one thing or change to something else. That's my big, I would say, takeaway from that.
Oh, I'll stop sharing for a moment, if that's okay. Yeah, Nikita, I think Nikita and Angelica, you both touch upon this, but do you want to elaborate a bit more how that transition sort of happened?
Sure. Do you want me to go first, Angelica, or do you want to? Okay. Yeah, so I kind of touched on how when I was in my junior and senior year, I did research for a little bit, and I don't know, I just found myself not really liking being in a lab. And my last internship before I graduated college, I worked for a company called Nalco Water, and they did water treatment at manufacturing plants. And I was in Seattle, and I went to a bunch of food, beverage, and they called it light manufacturing, so like smaller manufacturing plants. Every day we went to a new manufacturing plant, and I tell people it's like How It's Made. I don't know if any of you guys have seen that show, How It's Made. It felt like I was living that show every single day. Like one day I get to see how like glass bottles are made, another day water bottles, another day like Gatorade, like siding for houses, all these random things that I never thought about that are in our households or in the community. And I got to see how it was made. So anyways, that's kind of how I transitioned into, I just really liked the idea of manufacturing. Or I liked seeing how things were made and being part of that process, but I didn't like the ugly side of manufacturing, the side that we like to hide of emissions and pollutants to rivers and stuff like that. And I started with Nalco, I kind of got like dipped my toe into environmental compliance, but I didn't really know like exactly what that meant until I started my job here. But anyway, so when I interviewed for this job, I was like, oh yeah, I want to be an environmental engineer. And they said it's mostly environmental compliance. Are you okay with that? And I didn't know what I was getting into. I was just like, sure, that sounds fun. So that's kind of how I've gone into this path. But even now, like every day I learn something new, and I learn what my passions are and what my passions aren't. And honestly, air quality is really, really cool, and there's a lot in this field, but my passion has always kind of lied in water quality and water conservation and that side. And so I actually, just like Micalah, I'm doing my master's too in sustainable water engineering, and my company is helping me get that degree, so like financially. So that's been really cool to like I feel like I'm back in academia, even though I'm not doing any research or anything, but I'm getting to like learn about what things are happening now. Like I feel like when you join the position I'm in, I kind of just go through the motions, and I have to send in this report to EPA, send in this report to Department of Environmental Quality, and you kind of lose track of like some of the things that are like really important to right now, like water conservation. My degree is through Southern UCLA, so they talk a lot about the water quality issues in LA, and I would have never known that if I didn't start my master's. Anyway, so that's kind of where my passion lies. So when I say like, I don't know what your guys' careers are going to look like in 10 years. I don't know what mine's going to look like. Everything is always evolving. As I feel like as long as you're like really open to learning new things and asking, like if you join a company or you join a nonprofit organization or whatever, ask, hey, I want to go to the ESA conference. I want to join this webinar. I want to do this. And like, just really put yourself out there to learn all these things. Then you start to, realize what your passions are. So sorry, that was a long-winded answer of how I got here, but.
Oh, no problem. Please, Angie.
Yeah, mine is longer, so don't worry about it. Yeah, no, my story also resonated with Samantha in particular as well. I had, let's see, right after undergrad, I actually didn't know what I wanted to do specifically. It's like your degree was so broad, right? It was like natural resources. Like, what does that mean? I could do anything, right? I had a couple internships while in undergrad. I also worked in the library system as well. But yeah, I was like, okay, I had some experience with fishery biology. I had some experience with plants as well. But I wanted to see what else was out there. So my plan was to do internship after internship after internship short-term experiences until I landed like either what I wanted or found something. And I wanted to travel the world because I was a girl who grew up in the Poconos and I never went international before. So I thought this was a great opportunity to do so. So I ended up landing an internship. I actually was trying to manifest going to Hawaii. I actually manifested it. I got offered a position in Hawaii to do birds. You know, I still have trouble knowing what birds are outside my door. So obviously I didn't take that internship. I didn't take it for a reason because they didn't have funding. And I'm a big proponent of getting paid for your time. So I couldn't afford to do that. So I ended up with an internship going to the desert of Arizona. And I went to Ajo, Arizona, and I was like 5 miles from the border. My first time crossing the border, was able to like eat amazing fish tacos, see the dolphins swim in the ocean, sleep on the beach, amazing. And maybe when we get to another topic about field safety, we can talk about that later and the challenges of being a woman in the field. But anyway, so I did that internship for a little bit. It was kind of looking at cacti and the symbiotic mutualism between this cactus flower and a moth. It was an awesome experience. At the same time, I was waiting to hear back from a couple of jobs that I applied for. And I actually landed one. While on that internship, I got hired to move to New York City for my first full-time job out of undergrad. And that was at Barnard College as a research assistant in a plant biology lab. So I was going to be working with plants. This kind of, addresses the question that Annabelle had. When I had that interview, I was like, yep. I had no idea what, plant epigenetics was. I was just like, I'm sure I'm going to learn. This looks cool. And I just let the supervisor talk, and I was just nodding and smiling. She liked me, I got the job. So it was all about on-the-job training. I did that for about 4 years or so. And I ended up transitioning to another job within the same building as a program manager in the environmental science department. So all these positions after undergrad was on soft money. So it was grant funded every 3 years. It was uncertain whether they were gonna have money to fund me. So it was a little uncertain, but I was able to transition out of being in the lab, research lab, and go into more of a program management administrative position in a college. So that's when I really got exposure to mentor students, be a co-advisor for our seeds program at Barnard College at the time. I was able to mentor high school students and high school programs that was run out of our department. I was able to supervise student workers in our department. So kind of having the science experience and then transitioning to this program management experience really helped me combine science and administration skills that kind of helped me today to get this position. But yeah, between my time at Barnard and now, I had about 3 or 4 jobs while working on my PhD. And I ended up becoming a full-time PhD student after 7 years of working. It took so long to decide whether or not I wanted to go to grad school because of the GRE. I was intimidated. I was like, I'm only going to be working for 3 years and I'll go get my master's. And I was like, oh, I got to do this test. Now I'll keep working and making money. So I ended up needing a push, and serendipitously, Columbia University, which is across the street from Barnard College, started a Bridge to PhD program. And I would encourage you to maybe look those up as well if you want to go to grad school. But this Bridge to PhD program focused on mentoring post-bacs who are interested in going into STEM fields and doing their PhD. And they were going to fund your salary. You just had to get mentored and placed in a lab And then you get professional development, so workshops, GRE training, things like that. They'll help you with your grad school applications and waive fees, things like that. So that was for 2 years. I did that for 2 years, also while working. And I got into grad school. I got into grad school at Cornell University, or not Cornell, Columbia University, right across the street. I credit that to being able to work at a college and take courses as a benefit of being staff. So I was able to take a course in plant ecophysiology with the advisor that I would end up going, he would be my PhD advisor. So I took a class, he saw the work that I did. I'm telling you, I went into grad school because I took those classes and I was able to make connections while working, because my GPA coming out of Cornell, that was bad. That was, it was like 2.5. Okay, so if I can get from that type of GPA to becoming a doctor, then it's possible. You just got to take alternate routes and work on yourself along the way.
Sorry.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was the end of your thoughts. I was like,
yeah, no, that's totally fine.
You inhaled, so your fault. No, I'm just kidding. So just to tie it back to the original question, did I expect to be in my career field? No. If you would have talked to me when I was like graduating from undergrad, I would have told you I'm going to be a scientist, and I'm a project manager who manages scientists and engineers and a bunch of other government officials and stuff like that. So if you like being the boss, it's kind of a good situation to be in. But actually, someone asked a question in the chat about a piece of career advice. And so it actually reminds me of a story, and it actually happened at a Seeds leadership retreat. So this was junior, I think it was a junior. Right before I was graduating, this was like 20-year-old me. And I was like, I don't really know what I'm going to do with my life. I'm sure y'all can relate. And so I went on this Seeds leadership conference. I was very happy to do it. We went to the Coweta Hydrologic Laboratory. I think it was in North Carolina, but I get the South and the North mixed up. And so one of the most, I have a memory and it stuck with me all these years. And it was a man, he worked at the US Forest Service. I can't remember his name for the life of me, but he was gray, so he was older. And he told us a story about how he started his career working in a paper mill. And so he actually worked, I think he was like the water boy, because making paper is a very water intensive process. And so he would bring water or some other menial task. And that's where he started his career, obviously many decades prior to when he was giving this presentation, but he wasn't like a man of education. He wasn't the silver spoon Harvard grad who then found his way into, one of the higher echelons of the US Forest Service. He started as, a hardworking guy, and somehow in a very unlinear or non-linear route, he found his way to being a career US Forest Service employee. And he said that he had never envisioned that for his life. And something that he said that sticks with me to this day is that it just has to happen organically. And for a type A person like myself, I was like, wait, you didn't plan everything? What is this? And I was like, it was something that was very contrary to how I had like done my life to that point, which 20 years might seem like a lot. It's not. And so, he just said, just let it happen. Just take opportunities that come your way if it feels right, regardless of if it fits into your predetermined plan. Just open doors and see what happens. And so one of the pieces of advice that I would like to give you all is just give it a go. If you don't feel ready for it, apply anyway. Don't ever count yourself out just because you think you're not worthy or you think you're not ready. Let them tell you. Let them tell you. And so, yeah, like that one man, and I can't remember his name, but he's just this old white man. And he literally just gave me some of the best advice I'd ever heard. Just let your career and your life happen organically, and you'll find where you need to be in the end. You'll find happiness, and I wouldn't worry too much about it. Just toss your hat in the ring, see what happens. So yeah.
Thank you all. And yeah, I do not want to neglect, sorry, Sam, did you went over this?
I was just clapping, like, yes.
Okay.
Yes, that was fantastic.
Skip through anybody. So I don't want to let any of the questions come in the chat. So anybody, I think, Angie, you touched upon this, but how were both of you handling your degree and working at the same time?
Yeah, it was not easy. Let's just say that. I completed my PhD in 2021. So throughout the pandemic as well, while working full time. And it was intense. I'll tell you the truth is that, typically for the PhD programs, in my department, it takes about 5 years to complete a PhD. For me personally, my journey was 9 years. And that was because the last 4 years was me working full time. And there was a point, during that time where I moved back home because I had family health issues that I had to attend to. And then I moved out of the city. So I moved out of New York City to Pennsylvania. I ran out of funding. So I had to work, and I wasn't given mentorship or advice on getting funding to support my graduate work. So I had to depend on myself to get money. So I ended up getting hired a full-time job on the east side of New York. And because I had to live with my family at the time, I was commuting. And I was commuting like 8 hours a day for like 6 months. Unfortunately, I was thinking like I was gonna, I'll finish I'll finish writing on the train. Yeah, that didn't happen. It was just too much. And so there was a couple years where it was just like, burnout. I just was focusing on work. But I ended up getting back into it a little bit more. Probably in the last 2 years of it. And for the last year, this last push of it was really because of the job that I have now. They really wanted me to get my degree. They were supportive of it. A lot of my mentors work, they come to the forest to do the research that they do. And so the executive director of the forest was like, how can we support you? And so they gave me a day. So like every Friday, I was able to not do the work that I had to do here, but instead concentrate on my degree and concentrate on writing my dissertation. So I thought that type of support really helped me along the way.
Thanks, Angie. And Nikita, you're currently enrolled, right, in master's degree. How?
Yeah. So I'm only 2 quarters in so far. But it's funny because this week is finals week for us. And so I feel like I'm feeling the pressure, like definitely this week.
Sorry.
And it's also stack testing, which is where we bring in contractors and we test all of our stacks at the mill. And so it's longer days and stuff. And it's sometimes that's going to happen with your work and your school are just going to collide. And it's just like, it's a lot. But I think the biggest thing for me is we have a small group. It's like 12 of us that are taking online school, full-time employees, and we kind of push each other. So we have a group chat and we make sure we stay on top of each other and say like, oh, have you done this homework yet? Or what? I don't know. We try to support each other through it. And then we've also been really fortunate with a very, very understanding director of the program. And I think she's kind of passed that down to the professors too. Like they're understanding if we need an extra day or two to get our homework done. Or if we need to push it off by a week, or, they're just really accommodating. And then they let us take our tests on the weekends. I think COVID has helped that a lot too, because just they're getting really used to online systems and being more flexible around that. But I will say, like, there's a lot of days where you get home and you're tired from your work day and all you want to do is lay on your bed and scroll TikTok or something for the rest of the evening. But I think I try to make a routine where I get home, I exercise, and that gets my adrenaline up, and it gets me through the next few hours before I knock out and go to sleep. So if there's any advice I have for that, is just like get a set routine, and then it's harder to break that routine and be like, let me just like stay on the bed. No, just stick to your schedule and get the things you need done. And I'm not finished yet, so we'll see how it goes. But so far it's worked. So
I'm almost done. So I just registered for my last quarter. Oh, I'm so excited. So I actually did the reverse. So I came to school in person and I work remote. And so, you juggle a lot. You get really good at juggling. And one of the things that I think people need to realize is that the more responsibilities and tasks that you take on, the less you have the ability to do 100% for each of those things. There's only so many hours in the day that you're awake. And you don't want to totally destroy your weekends. So if you're going to take on multiple responsibilities, you need to prioritize which ones you need to do A+ work in, and which other ones you can do like B+ work and still be fine. And just making sure that you prioritize things differently rather than thinking everything is like mission critical, because you'll probably run into some mental health issues if you treat everything like that. That's actually a great segue, mental health. So managing your workload is one thing, but managing all your responsibilities and the stress that can come with that is another skill that you have to develop. Luckily, I actually developed it through my work. Project management is very stressful and you have to juggle a lot of different things. So in my current position, I implement a FEMA program, which is called Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. And they set aside millions of dollars and they're basically like, okay, you have to implement this in Texas and do it all right and manage 10 different independent contractors and engineers. Oh, and then also the government agencies that are involved in this. So you can be spread really thin. And so that just kind of, it builds your endurance, because if you can survive situations like that, you can do grad school. And so I think just communicating effectively with everyone, so your professors, your supervisor, yourself, being honest about whether or not you can do all of this, and if you want to realistically right now, and then being hyper organized. So I would definitely recommend, if you're thinking about going to school and working, get your syllabi. I don't know how many of y'all read them in undergrad, but you're going to want to read them in graduate school. So gather your syllabi, read through them, and then in whatever calendar you use, either a paper one if you're old school like me, or an app for our younger generation, then literally write down all of your assignments that are due throughout the quarter or throughout the semester according to your syllabi. That way, you know what weeks are going to be difficult and you know what weeks are going to be light. So you're able to adjust things and move assignments or move your work to better even out how you actually go about meeting all of those requirements. And that's a project manager tip, but it's really good for grad school as well. So that's all that I would say about that.
I have to say, I used to pride myself in like, I have my whole schedule memorized. And yeah, you should look at my Outlook calendar right now. There's like colors on colors on colors. Organization is so key. Because, and that's the thing, like when I like to look at like TED Talks and like read about brain hacking, like hack your life to make it easier for yourself. Why keep everything in your head and use that, have all that energy in your head? You need to just write it down or put it down so you can allocate all that energy in your brain to something else more useful. So don't keep everything in your head, write things down so you don't, stay awake at night thinking about what you have to do. It's already on somewhere written down. So, yeah.
That's an educator tip. And project manager and everything. Yeah, but without health, you don't have anything. So take care of yourself, because that precedes anything else. Yeah, and just following that, like thinking of challenges that you face, and yeah, and I know some of you have to go, so that's okay. But so what piece of advice do you, and I think we've mentioned them already, but what other advice would you give to early career or your undergrad self, and then anybody that is actually looking for jobs right now based on the challenges that you've faced in this process?
I'll go first because I'm the one who has to go. So basically what I want to leave you with is, if you only get opportunities that don't align with what you think your life should look like, that's okay. As long as you find something that you can be interested in, that pays the bills and leaves you with some sense of fulfillment at the end of the day, that's the jackpot in reality, because a lot of people don't actually find that. And then kind of just on a more personal note, I would really say seek joy. So whatever you're doing, if it's your job, if it's your education, if it's walking your dog, like whatever you do in your life, try to find things that bring you joy. And I don't think you'll be led astray if you apply to opportunities and things with that in mind. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure, everybody. I gotta run. We are now your network. So feel free to stay in touch, and go women.
Thanks so much, Micalah. Yeah, so
Yeah, going off that, I do agree with what you're saying, as well as trying to find that balance just for your life in general. Find the things that bring you joy, the things that you value, and try to create your life around that, as well as with that job. Just try to find a balance with all of that. That way, maybe if you're not 100% thrilled with your career right now, you have all these other things that still center you and make you feel happy, and it could motivate you to one day maybe look for that other job that you're looking for. But it's definitely, I would say, a balance. And I would tell myself to have better balance going into the whole looking for jobs and all of that.
I would say, don't compare your journey to someone else's. Oftentimes we're, especially in my journey, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like the oldest person in the PhD program at the moment. That's what it felt like, and it was like, I remember a good friend of mine was like, Angie, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And that kind of brought peace to me, because I'm like, yeah, there's a reason why, not everyone has kind of the cards laid out on them. Some people have more obstacles in front of them than others. All of our obstacles are different. How we encounter them, how we cope with them is different. So our journeys are going to be looking very, very different. I had mentioned my career track was very different. I was a chef at one point. Okay. So that was probably the most stress-free time I had in my life. And it was super fun. So yeah, your journey is your own. Own it, be proud of it. And you'll just watch out for your mental health and find joy. I do like that message as well.
Okay. Mine, just because this is like women in ecology, I want to give some advice of being a woman in a science field. So, as I know with ecologists, there's, you know, the old white man's club. We have that here at our mill as well. And there's going to be times in your career when you're just sitting in a room and you look around and everybody is an old white man. And I would say it took me a while and I'm still getting better at it. It's very stereotypical, but you'll know it when you start to see it, that your voice isn't heard as much. People will dismiss what you say. You'll get passed up on opportunities that you have shown passion for, and you say, I want to be this person, I want to be this person. You can say it 50 times and you'll still get passed up to a white man. And so I think the best thing that's helped me is I found women mentors in my company, even in my personal life, that I go to when I'm like hitting that kind of situation. And sometimes they like, all you can do is just vent about it, but they'll say, you know what, you got passed up for this opportunity, but for the next one, be 10 times louder. You know, they might get annoyed, but just do it anyway, because that's kind of what you struggle with being a woman in an engineering or science field is, I don't know why it's still here, and you know, sometimes I think like, dang, it's 2022. You'd think we'd be done with this by now, but it's gonna happen, and it's not even gonna be like to somebody who's way more experienced than you. It might be somebody sitting right next to you who has the exact same amount of years or even less. So I would just say, like, getting people in your corner that you can go to when those situations happen. Somebody told me that when I was in college, and that was the best advice that I've gotten.
Yeah, I'm looking at the clock. We're right above 6 p.m. So I want to be respectful of everyone's time. And this could be going as long as we would like, but I want to thank you all again for joining us today, and those from the CEAS chapters who attended. So thank you all so much.
Sandra,
Yes.
sorry, I was wondering if I had a few slides that actually had some information that I wanted them to have access to. I don't know if this presentation will be emailed out or anything, but I did have some internship opportunities I wanted to mention to them.
Of course, yeah, it will be shared. So should I do that slide? Is it towards?
Yeah, so I wanted to just show them the different, like, few other jobs that MPS has, the National Park Service, in case they were interested in anything else, and also talk about just the other internships that they could apply for if they were interested.
Yeah, so the recording and the PowerPoint will be shared, so you can go ahead, and those that have to leave can leave.
Yeah, so there are a few different jobs that you can have with the National Park Service. They're all also not listed here, but maybe you're not sure if you do want to go into interpretation and education. Maybe you don't know if you want to work with cultural resources and do any type of research or anything like that. There is like the search and rescue unit with the Park Service as well. We do have law enforcement. We do have our maintenance rangers who kind of maintenance the trails, work with graffiti. We can go to the next one.
Okay.
Then, yeah, we do have the cultural resource department. There are people who do the research in the park, whether it's water quality, soil quality, anything you can think of, invasive species, wild animals, everything you can think of. And then there's interpretation, working with the public. And then there's the fees, people, you know, who have to charge you when you head into the park, give information about campgrounds, different things like that. And there's also, if you maybe not sure, you can always look into internship programs. I did put hyperlinks for anyone that does have access to this PowerPoint if they want to check out any of these, but there are 423 park units. So there's lots of different places to choose from. There is the Youth Conservation Corp, which is a program, and that's for people who are under 18. So if you do know anyone who may be interested in wanting to work with the Park Service, the Pathways program supports students. Doesn't have to be in institutions, it could be in trade schools as well. They have those internship opportunities, as well as scientists in the park, which though that is more kind of science related, but working in the Park Service. And this was a really cool link I put, is Dare to Imagine. The National Park Service has a whole page from different women who do different things in the park and give their story. Some are articles, some are videos, but it's a really cool link. I'd recommend checking it out. It's on the National Park Service page, especially because it's Women's Month. So go women. You know, we tend to be also very underrepresented in the National Park Service. I would say the most women I encounter are usually in the education department. However, that can't always be the case. It's not always the case. And yeah, let's get some representation out there.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Yeah, and just this is a plug for a different event happening this month, also around career. If you're interested in applied ecology, please make sure to check this event out. And yeah, just a reminder for the awardees to send those monthly reports. We love knowing what you're up to with those grant awards. And thank you all again. Bye.